Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship. Our tradition is to go around and introduce ourselves first, and then we'll hear from our speaker. My name is Tom Bruein.
And Amy.
I'm George.
Michael.
My name is Todd Swan.
Casper.
Jack.
My name is Jeff.
My name is Jerry Jones.
My name is Mark.
My name is Michael.
Peter.
My name is Oswaldo.
My name is Gage.
Joe. Chris.
My name is Darcy Clark.
I'm Jerry Martin.
I'm Andreas.
I'm Kai.
Richard Azzolini.
Jay Davidson.
My name is Roy.
My name is Daniel.
Philip.
Jim Stewart.
George.
Baruch.
Mark Freeman.
John.
I'm Kei Matsuda.
My name is Michael.
My name is Manuel.
My name is Bob. My name is Peter.
My name is Andre.
David Lewis.
Did we miss anyone? So, welcome to Chris and Kai, and welcome back to Bob. That's right. So, our speaker today is Daigan Gaither. Daigan began Buddhist practice in 1995 as a Vipassana practitioner and began to study Zen in 2003 with Paul Haller. He received lay ordination in 2006 and became a resident of San Francisco Zen Center in 2008, where he currently lives and is a priest. His work and practice include many hours devoted to community service as one of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence since 1995, and a volunteer caregiver with Zen Hospice Project since 2003. Daigan is a full-time student working towards a graduate degree in Buddhist studies to become board certified as a chaplain. He is also the co-facilitator of San Francisco Zen Center's Queer Dharma, which meets once a month on Saturday afternoons. Daigan, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming to spend a beautiful Sunday morning sitting and hearing Dharma. It's a great thing. I want to start off by saying my mom went in the hospital yesterday, and so I left my phone on. It may vibrate. We're still waiting for things to happen. So what I want to talk about today is one of the interesting things for me about Buddhism is that no matter that we don't spend a lot of time worrying about where stories come from as much as the substance of the story. In other words, the teachings come to us in many ways, sometimes dressed in packages we don't necessarily think of as our tradition or our practice or our idea. And and so sometimes that's that can stop us from hearing what is actually being said. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about Bodhisattva practice. And I was talking to a friend of mine who said, "Oh, there's going to be all these Vipassana people there. You can't talk about Bodhisattva practice." And I said, "Sure I can." Because I don't actually think that Bodhisattva practice is limited to Mahayana tradition. But the real question is what is Bodhisattva practice, and what is it to do this, right? it's one thing to talk about the ideas behind it, but when the rubber meets the road, what is it that we do as bodhisattvas in the world? And what are these things called bodhisattvas? For me, a bodhisattva is an archetype. I see them, particularly the named ones, as ways to practice in the world, as an opportunity to focus in on one particular aspect of what it means to practice. In the Zen tradition, we have the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, also known as the Bodhisattva of compassion. So when I want to figure out what compassion looks like, I might spend some time thinking about this being. We also have Samantabhadra, which is the Bodhisattva of great activity, or right livelihood, or what is it to take actions that are skillful and wholesome and useful? What is it to actually practice? And we also have Manjushri. And Manjushri is the Bodhisattva of wisdom. And then deep within the Lotus Sutra, in chapter 20, we have my favorite Bodhisattva, and the one that I spend most of my time trying to emulate. The Sanskrit name is Saraparibhuta, also known as the Bodhisattva Never Disparage. And the story in the Lotus Sutra goes something like that this was a monk who lived a long, long time ago and didn't spend a lot of time studying sutras, didn't spend a lot of time meditating, doing the normal things that monks are supposed to do. This monk's practice was to simply look at the people around him and say, I would never disparage you or put you at a distance because I see Buddha in you. And then he would bow. And that was his whole practice, to see Buddha in everyone, no matter what. The Lotus Sutra goes on to tell us that a lot of people thought this was weird. And so they would throw sticks at him and stones and beat him, particularly senior monks or people who didn't understand this practice. And so his response was to step away to a safe distance and then say to the person throwing stones, I'm not going to disparage you. I'm not going to keep you at a distance. I see Buddha in you. So what is it to practice with this? How is it that we can take this teaching, which may or may not have anything to do with those stories that tell us about how the Lotus Sutra comes to us? But it's an interesting idea, right? To live our lives seeing Buddha in everyone. To live our lives in such a way that even those who throw stones at us are Buddha. So what is it to do that? So Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a great Vietnamese monk and a very prodigious writer, gives us one view of how to look at this as a teaching story. We can look at it and apply it as if Bodhisattva Never Disparage were talking to us. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, this Bodhisattva removes the feelings of worthlessness and low self-esteem in people. How can I become a Buddha? How can I attain enlightenment? There's nothing here in me except suffering, and I don't know how to get free of my own suffering, much less help others. I'm worthless. Many people have these kinds of feelings, and they suffer more because of them. Never disparaging Bodhisattva works to encourage and empower people who feel this way, to remind them that they too have Buddha nature, that they too are a wonder of life, that they too can achieve what a Buddha achieves. This is the great message of hope and confidence. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva in action. So when I think that I'm just this guy, right? What do I know about helping people? What do I know about listening to people? What do I know about standing in front of a group or sitting in front of a group saying a bunch of words? I can look at this story and think, maybe I should start here. Maybe I should start with this one, this skin bag, and think about, maybe it's possible. Maybe I'm not my story about myself, right? Maybe those things I say about myself may not necessarily be true. They may come from some story that someone told me long ago. The other way we can look at this, wonderful Bodhisattva, is we can think about it in terms of, how do I see the world? Anyone who's done a long-time meditation retreat, say at Spirit Rock or something, part of that meditation retreat is always this loving-kindness meditation. Learning to practice loving-kindness in the world, metta. So, in that practice, we start with this one, and then we move outward. And we think, oh, yeah, these people I love, my partners, my friends, the people who agree with me, who think the things I think, who confirm my stories about myself or the world, may they be well. It's easy to look at our friends and think, yeah, you could be a Buddha. Yeah, you could be enlightened. Sometimes it's easier to think that about them than it is to think that about ourselves. But then we have to stretch a little bit more, and we have to go a little bit deeper. And we get to ask about those people we don't really know. If you've done more than a couple of weeks, often when you do these silent retreats, you're sitting next to people you have no idea about who they are. I always create wonderful stories. It's a great distraction. I create wonderful stories about their life, and then you meet them afterwards when you can actually talk to them and you find out your stories are great. I once had a guy I have a lot of tattoos, and I had a guy who once was convinced I was a biker, and told me afterwards that he thought I was like really angry and really grumpy and really tough. And I thought, nice story. So, but what is it to just see Buddha there with this stranger? Not our story about them, not our story about ourselves. Just see Buddha. I would never disparage you or keep you at arm's length. I see Buddha in you. It's a little bit of a stretch sometimes. But then we get to the people like Fred Phelps. people like most of the clown car in current politics, or the banker who foreclosed on our house. What is it to look at them and think they too are Buddha? They too can achieve enlightenment. To wish them happiness and love. And that's where the rubber meets the road, right? These people who throw sticks and stones at us, those people who tell us those stories that make it hard for us to love ourselves, the people who have convinced us that we don't deserve anything. Can we see them? My favorite translation of the loving kindness meditation says, "This is what should be accomplished by the one who is wise, who seeks the good and has obtained peace. Let one be strenuous, upright, and sincere, without pride, easily contented and joyous. Let one not be submerged by the things of the world, and let one not take upon oneself the burden of riches. Let one's senses be controlled. Let one be wise, but not puffed up. And let one not desire great possessions, even for one's family. Let one do nothing that is mean or that the wise would reprove. May all beings be happy. May they be joyous and live in safety. All living beings, whether weak or strong, in high or middle or low realms of existence, small or great, visible or invisible, near or far, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let no one deceive another nor despise any being in any state. Let none by anger or hatred wish harm to another. Even as a mother at the risk of her life watches over and protects her only child, so with a boundless mind should one cherish all living things, suffusing love over the entire world, above, below, and all around without limit. So let one cultivate an infinite goodwill toward the whole world, standing or walking, sitting or lying down, during all one's waking hours. Let one practice the way with gratitude, not holding to fixed views, endowed with insight, freed from sense appetites. One who achieves the way will be freed from the duality of birth and death." We're told those are the words of the Buddha. But even if they're not, there's some pretty amazing things there, right? Suffusing love over the entire world. The hard one for me is, let no one deceive another nor despise any being in any state. That includes myself. And that includes Fred Phelps, or that guy who works at NAM, the National Organization for Marriage, who has recently said some pretty amazing things. And what's interesting about this is that there's I like to talk a lot, so it's nice to have little reminders to look at your watch so that you leave a little time for everyone. What's interesting about this metta practice is that it exists in all traditions. When I was studying Vipassana and spent time at Spirit Rock and IBS, that's what you would do. You would go on these retreats, and even if they were only 7 days, there was always at least one day dedicated to metta practice. In Zen practice, we chant this at least once a week, but quite often actually. I personally chant it just about every day. In Vajrayana, or Shambhala practice, one of my favorite teachers gives some really great instruction on the practice called Tonglen, which is how they practice, in Shambhala. And Tonglen practice, as explained by Pema Chodron, says we begin the practice by taking on the suffering of a person we know to be hurting and who we wish to help. For instance, if you know a child who is being hurt, you breathe in the wish to take away all the pain and fear of that child. To take in all the pain and fear of that child. To really let that register. Then, as you breathe out, you send the child happiness, joy, or whatever would relieve their pain. This is the core of the practice. Breathing in others' pain so that they can be well and have more space to relax and open. And breathing out, sending them relaxation or whatever you feel would bring them relief and happiness. However, she goes on to say, we often cannot do this practice because we come face to face with our own fear, our own resistance, anger, or whatever our personal pain, our personal stuckness happens to be at this moment. That's the interesting thing about these practices, right? They force us to look at our own fear, our own suffering, our own insecurities. I work in hospice, and it's really hard when I'm avoiding my grief to sit with a family that's grieving. Because I certainly don't want to stay there and look at my own stuff. The only way I get to do that work is because I turn towards it. And so that's what this practice looks like. This is what the Bodhisattva Never Disparaged says to us. This is what the Metta Sutta says to us. That to practice the way really means to look at ourselves, deal with our stuff, and then give that away. When we dedicate the merit, that's what we're doing. We're giving away the stuff, our own work. Whatever shred of self-confidence I have, I give it away. Whatever shred of peace and ease, I give it away. Whatever hope that I have that I can achieve enlightenment, I get to give it away. So I'm going to end with something that I always hate when people do it, but it actually is really effective for this practice. And I'm going to ask you to pick a neighbor and look at them and just kind of be with them for a minute. Feel your body. Feel your own heart. And if you don't have anyone, we can do it 3 times. It's okay. And then pick someone who's going to talk first. And if you're listening, I want you to really let this register. To let that enter your body and feel it completely. And if you're talking, I want you to feel it and leave your body do it as an offering. And I'm going to ask you to repeat after me. Looking at your partner, I would never disparage you. Or keep you at arm's length. Because I see Buddha in you. Feel that for a minute. Make contact with that. And then switch places. And repeat after me. I would never disparage you. Or keep you at arm's length. Because I know you will be a Buddha. Let that register. Take that into your body. And now, for a third time, I will never disparage you or keep you at arm's length because I know you will be a Buddha. And now just feel for a moment. What was it to offer that to your friend? What was it to hear that and to let it register? And what can I do to make that happen outside of this room? To take it with me. What do I need to encourage myself to do this practice wholeheartedly? Thank you all very much for your attention and your willingness. And now we get to do my favorite part, which is you get to talk and I get to listen. And probably add some things to your thoughts. So we'll open it up to questions. Ooh, I did really well. Discussions or questions or just what's on your mind. Yeah.
I really thank you very much for this topic.
Would you tell me your name again, please?
Yeah. I especially like the second part of practice, because I am much more skillful about not disparaging them verbally or even mentally, sort of not going there, but not keeping someone at arm's distance is a challenge. Like, sort of fire people, you know. Like, I love you, and we don't have to hang out together. Go away.
I hear a little recognition in the room. Yeah. How easy it is to, I love you, but. And what an effort it takes to just say, I love you. My mom and I had a difficult relationship for a number of years. And when it changed was when I stopped trying to make her into something. And I just let her be herself. I stopped saying, I love you, but you have to treat me this way. I love you, but you have to say these things or do these things. And I just sort of let her be herself. even when she's doing things that hurt my feelings. Doesn't mean I have to necessarily take it. I do get to come to a safe distance. But that's never permanent, right? I have to move back in. You wanted to say something too.
Well, the quality
Say your name again.
Bob.
Bob.
So the quality of the last little practice is a reminder for me of boundaries and the necessity of crossing one's own boundary or one's own safe perimeter. Some of that practice sort of came up because I was on jury duty on a domestic violence case, and people were just looking at the evidence but not looking at the people. Not that we could make a decision in a very sad case, but the ease that the setup that we were involved in being jurors is just to see them as ciphers and people who don't have full lives and are wishing and deserving of love, and sort of talking about that to begin with. People eased into actually looking at the case, not saying that we came up with a solution or made things better, but I guess it's just a reminder that as we started at the beginning of the jury was that we could be that defendant, we could be that victim, as that time to give space so that we could actually go over everything and even talk about our own fears of not knowing those people's lives and how our decision will affect them. So that the disparaging part is that making a decision, living with it, but that practice is also a reminder that we're all on the same level, same foundation, and that in and of itself is sort of a support or a ground. That's what I came out with this.
That was so beautiful and wonderfully said. Thank you. Please.
I'm Kay, and I have a question about the phrase that the non-disparaging Bodhisattva use when I see Buddha in you. Does that mean the person is seeing potential for enlightenment in everyone, or wondering if the person is already enlightened? In other words, when I say to somebody that I know you will be a Buddha, that assumes that that person is not yet a Buddha and perhaps not yet enlightened. Then, what if that person is enlightened?
There are teachings that say that past, present, and future exist in every moment. So if we see potential enlightenment, we see enlightenment. That's sort of the ultimate realm, right? That's one of those heady places that annoy me. In the real world, the question becomes, why is that important? Whether it's potential or not. Right? Why does potential become less important than actual? Why do I need to set that up as some kind of either-or situation? Right? Can I just let it both be true? Right? I think we sometimes create ways for us to complicate things way more than they have to be by asking the wrong question. Right? Did that answer your question? Or help you to find a way to sit with your question? I would also say explore it. One of the interesting things about teachings are that we get to explore them, meaning when I see it this way, what happens? How am I relating to people? If I see it the other way, what happens? How am I relating to people? And which one settles my heart and mind more? Which one feels how I want to be in the world? You know? And then work with that one. I think sometimes people need to see potential, and other times people need to think you're really Buddha right now. And both of those can be true. Please, and say your name.
I'm John.
John.
I appreciate what you said in response to the first exchange about I love you, but because what I saw out of this was how I treat that seeing the Buddha nature in others as a conditional thing. Mm-hmm. Like if somebody's there and receptive and we're resonating and we're on the same page, then I can have that. But if it's the person that cut me off in traffic, or is the case this morning, the person that I cut off in traffic, I see everybody else is inherently an asshole, and that my well-wishing for that person is conditional on somehow having that resonance. But if I hold that person in the place of Fred Phelps, then I'm not going to have that, and then I'm less, and then I cheat myself of my own practice of having that well-wishing. One of my teachers gave us this exercise to have well-wishing for somebody, or to say God bless that person. That out of a Sufi practice, that if someone comes to your mind that's disturbing, or you have a thought about someone, it's just that person asking you for a blessing. They're just asking for a blessing. So to cut through that mind stuff by just having well-wishing for them. So thank you for bringing that in to see that I do have that conditional state, rather than being an unconditional love.
Yeah. It's amazing how the world confirms our own ideas about it, right? I'm in a hurry, and all of a sudden everybody in the world is in my way. I'm really angry, so everybody in the world is an asshole. And if I start with, what's my state of being? How am I contributing to this? Right? The other thing you said about God bless you made me think of, I grew up in the South. And for those of you who aren't from the South, we speak a special language. So in the South, there's a phrase called bless your heart. For a long time, bless your heart meant, God, what a fuckhead you are. It basically meant curl up in a hole and die. But I started to sort of work with it to really bless your heart. So when people would say it to me in the South, instead of translating it the way I used to, I would think, oh, bless my heart, thanks, that's great. But when I would say it, I also had to translate it, right? To let it really be, bless your heart. Can I really, because it's habit I grew up saying this, right? So it's habit for me to think when I'm really pissed off, oh, bless your little heart. Can I really, for a minute, even if it's just for a minute, can I really let it be, bless your heart? And not curl up in a hole and die. Please.
My name is Philip. Thank you very much for sharing your teachings with us. I have a question. You had a quote, and I can't remember who the teacher was, but it was about taking on the suffering of others.
Pema Chodron, yeah. Tonglen practice, yeah.
And I'm wondering if you could expound maybe a little bit more on that, in terms of taking on the suffering versus, for example, maybe helping someone to cope with the suffering or expel it themselves.
I think particularly in the West, we psychologize a little bit of practice, right? And we try to build nice little boundaries. And I think this idea of taking this on, really feeling your suffering. Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, listens to the cries of the world and takes them on, holds them. And when you hold that feeling, when you hold that suffering, when you turn towards that suffering, it gives the people around you permission to hold that suffering too. So when I'm sitting with people who are in deep grief, their parents just died or someone they love dearly just died, and I'm sitting with them and I give them the example of just holding space by taking their suffering in, meeting it completely. It's transformative for them and for me. And I think the world could use some transformation sometimes. It's easy to get caught up in, I have to have these boundaries. I have to, I don't want to be codependent. I'm not so certain. I'm not so convinced by that anymore. I think sometimes codependency is kind of a great thing. We're codependently arising anyway. So let's just own it. Because your suffering is not any different than my suffering. So when we take that in and we let that transform, then when we breathe out this love or joy, it gives people the permission to do the same thing in their own life. I think that's what the transformation is. I'm sure Pema explains it a little bit better. I can't remember where I got the quote from. I just have a copy of this instruction. But I'm happy to share that with you if you give me your email address.
Thank you.
Please.
Yes, hi. My name is Darcy. And I'm just curious, how does your background with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence impact, how they impacted your practice? Did they influence you going into Buddhism, or would you care to share on this topic?
There's some sisters in the room. I actually became a sister at the same time I started to practice. And they both are kind of related, because I started being a sister because I stopped being able to work. And I knew that I had to do something or I would go crazy. And so that's what I chose to do. And how it influences my practice, it was my first ministry. It was my first Dharma gate. These, you want to talk about meeting suffering. Be in a bar where some man is telling you he just found out he had HIV. Or a woman is telling you that she just got diagnosed with breast cancer, or that her partner died, and taking that on and being with people in those moments. And also seeing the transformation of joy. The sisters are pretty silly. And it's kind of an amazing thing to just let yourself be silly for a minute. I don't know about you, but I kind of grew up in a world where I had certain ideas about what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a gay man, what it meant to be all of those things. And to sort of turn that on its head in this way where you walk around completely anonymous and yet completely seen and completely visible. There's no hiding as a sister. And so I think that's how it affects, and it still does. It still transforms me. And my ordination was in July, and there were 26 sisters there. And during the ordination, there's a point at which I come into the room, and to see them there, I could relax. I knew I was home. I had my sisters there to not let me take it so seriously. Right? here's this big high church ceremony. And in Zen, we really go high church. You know, we love the bells and whistles. Lots of bowing, lots of that stuff. And I got to not take it too seriously. I got to really see it as a joyful expression.
So could you keep your habit during that ceremony?
I still have my habit, and on occasion put it on. I have lots of habits now. I have some of them look like this, some of them don't, but I have lots of them now. Please.
Yeah,
sister.
Yeah, just following up on what you said about the sister. I think one of the things for me that's so wonderful is the way the sisters transform the space. So when we go out into the space, into the street, and you see, if you do try to actually tune into everybody as a Buddha and experience everything that's going on through the filter of compassion, it can be very overwhelming. And I think one of the great things that the sisters do is by transforming the space, they allow the possibility of that Buddha nature in other people to arise and to get people out of their everyday suffering. That's my experience.
It's really true. My favorite sister moment was, I can't remember why he was in town, but Fred Phelps was in town, and the sisters decided to come offer him some welcome. And we showed up in full habit and placed lilies in front of him and walked away. And for the briefest moment, he was quiet. Partially because I think he wondered, what the hell just happened? But I also want to think that was a moment where people just said, I'm not going to argue with you. Here. Just be here. I can see Buddha in you. Let me make this offering to you. And it was really powerful for me. Because I, with my grand ideas, pies and glitter and, let's embarrass them, let's outthink them, And somebody said, let's not let anyone else define our ministry for me. Let's just do what we do, which is love people. And it was a really powerful experience for me, transforming that space. And so that's my favorite nun experience.
Thank you. Wonderful talk. My name is Jim. I just want to recommend a book by a Bodhisattva. His name is Gregory Boyle, and he's a Jesuit in East LA. His congregation is between two low-income housing units that are stricken with gang warfare. And his concept is just boundless compassion, working with kids who think they are worthless and have no reason to live beyond 18. Mm-hmm. It is, it just moved me deeply, and it seems to be perfectly.
I can't remember the name of the book, but I remember...
Tattoos of the Heart.
Yeah, I remember seeing a brief excerpt of that, and it's on my
it's
rather growing pile of things to read. Being a graduate student, reading for pleasure is kind of a strange phenomenon these days.
Well, Daigan, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Do we have any announcements?
Yes, I'm your host. We have edibles out there. There's some cookies and some pumpkin cranberry cake. And for the vegans among us, there's some crisply green apple slices, drizzled with lime juice. To preserve their virgin light. I'll be going around with a Dharma bowl. Our suggested donation is $5 to $8. Feel free to be bountiful. Anything, this group is great. At the end of the year, any extra we have, we give away. So your money is not going into some certificate of deposit with one of the bad banks. There's a sign-up sheet and a newsletter out there. If you're new and would like to get on our email, please do so. Let us know how we can contact you. And typically at around 12:30, some guys who are interested in going to lunch together meet at the door. And so that's an opportunity as well to deepen fellowship in the Sangha. And if you have some tea, please wash your cup out with hot water and soap at the sink and put it back. Is that it? Okay.
Yes.
I just want to let people know that San Francisco Zen Center has a Queer Dharma group that meets once a month. Our next meeting is at the end of November, just after Thanksgiving. And you're warmly invited. It goes from 1 o'clock until 3:30. And it's usually some sitting, a Dharma talk, much the same as this, except we add another period of sitting because that's what Zen people do. So it ends with sitting as well.
And what's the other week?
It's always on a Saturday, and you can check out our website, which is sfzc.org, and just do a search for Queer Dharma, and we have our own page there. Or you can join our Facebook group.
Thank you once again, Daigan, for your wonderful talk. Our speaker next week will be John Mitsud.
Anything else? Yes.
There will be an annual Thanksgiving Day potluck of GBF members and friends at my place in the East Bay. So if you're interested in coming, please pick up a flyer, which is out there, or talk to me. Thank you.
Great. Michael, did we get a new date?
It's not confirmed
Okay.
yet, so but it's last week I announced the dates of next year's retreat, and that's kind of in flux now, so I'll keep you updated. It's likely to be the fourth weekend instead of the third weekend in September.
Okay, let's gather in a circle for our dedication prayer. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow. And may all live in equanimity, without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives. Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.